Hey, what's going on, guys? This is BunnyMuffins. We finally have the set 6 reveal and tons of stuff to go over, so I won't waste too much time in the intro, but we're going to go over all the augments, all the champions, all the traits, all that good stuff. There's some item changes as well, and pretty much just like my thoughts on the entire set. So like in the playtest, they were pretty cool games. Every game was actually different. Like they weren't lying about that when they said it. And that's because of the augments, so we'll get into those in just a second. Other stuff that's in the game is also a 2v2 mode. Lots of cool stuff there. You could queue up with a friend and it's a 2v2v2v2. And you could also queue up solo as well if you just like the game mode. But essentially, like you share health pools and there's like, you can assist your teammate with assistance armories. Your team actually helps your teammate at the end of a round if you finish the fight early. For example, if you're fighting on one board here, your teammate's over here, you finish over here and you win, your leftover team gets transported to your teammate's board after a couple seconds, which I thought was really cool, because like imagine that happening with like both sides doing that, and whoever smashed their first opponent gives a huge buff to his teammate. It's gonna be really interesting to see what strategies actually come out of that. There's also new little legends, I think 3 of them, and there's also chibis. Chibis are essentially champions which you could use in place of your little legends. I think like Jinx is one of them, and I think like Echo and Vi are the other ones, because that's like the theme of Riot's recent developments, such as their new anime which they're making, which is called Arcane, which from what I hear is coming out soon too. But again, let's just get right into this. Like we're starting off with the augments, then the champions, then the item changes, and then like we'll just go from there. Oh, and I did play 3 games of the new set. I'll be posting those like one later today, one tomorrow, and one the day after, and then hopefully like PBE's out by then, and then we'll be playing a bunch there. So all the PBE info and set 6 info will be like down in the description below or on the link on my website. But thanks so much for checking this out. I hope you guys are gonna enjoy playing the set on PBE when it comes out, like as much as I did, because the playtest was actually fun. Like I played in some of the other ones, like it was like whatever, you know, it's just like they changed a couple champions and that's it. But this is like actually a new set. Like, will it save TFT? I don't think TFT needs saving, but like compared to set 5, there's a lot more stuff, so just stay tuned for that. All right, let's get into the augments, because that's the theme of the set, so let's start out with those. So augments, there are like tier 1 augments, tier 2, and tier 3. Each of them, they have like different power levels, so let's get into like some of the themes of them to start off, I guess. So there are over 140 of them. So to break this down for you guys, there are like some theme sections. For example, like some of them, like I think there are like 10 of them, where you get like an emblem that's like part of your team. There are also some that give bonuses for your team, such as like share the spotlight. Allies adjacent to a spotlight at the start of combat gain 50% of its bonuses, and then like twin shot, range attacks, and abilities can bounce once, dealing 20% less damage. They're kind of bringing in things from previous sets and kind of like mixing and matching, which is kind of neat. In addition to that, you have augments that just give you 2 more of a trait. So for example, like 2 Arcanists, 2 Assassins, 2 Bodyguards, you just get 2 more of them. I'm assuming they have one for every single one, but some of them are a little special for these like super duper ones. For example, like there's one called Junkyard. Every 3 combat rounds with the scrap trait active, gain a random component. I'll have all these on my website, but I'm just going over like the highlights in this video. So if you want to read every single augment there is, head on over there. I'll leave a link in the description below to the exact page at bunnymuffins.lol. But there are also some neat ones that I'll go over briefly. It's like there's one called Windfall. You gain gold based on the number of augments you currently have. You could also just open up an armory that brings artifacts created by Ornn. If you guys remember Ornn from set 4, he had like boosted items that were like stronger than the regular ones, and you could probably do some nutty stuff with that. Again, assessing the power levels of these is going to be really difficult. There's like 2 Thieves Gloves, 2 Reforgers, and 2 random items. There's like +1 team size. Each time your shop is refreshed, you get a 35% chance to gain a free refresh. There's even level up. And yeah, there's like a ton of bonuses based on what type of team you have. Sometimes you get like start of combat, your units just have more attack damage if they're in the front row. That one I tried out in a game, and like I just put all my assassins in the front line with lockets and it worked out pretty well. But you have the same thing with like AP, defensive stats, health, all that good stuff. There's also one called Exile, which I thought was pretty cool. You just separate your team because you have the Exile trait, which you guys know from like set 4 and set 1, where if your unit is alone and no one's touching them, they gain a bonus shield at the start of the game. But a lot of the cool ones are in the beginning. They're the tier 1 ones. One's like calculated loss. After losing combat, you gain 2 gold and a free shop refresh. So that is like the reroll one. If you get that one, like just force reroll, because you're going to lose streak and then you get free shop refreshes. like you're going to be doing pretty well. You're going to be hitting your 3-star 1 cost pretty quickly. So you got to adapt your playstyle to every single like game, I guess, because it's kind of like choose your own galaxy. It's kind of like an adventure as well. It's like a deck building game. I guess this has always been a deck building game, but even more so now. But like after winning your combat, gain 1 bonus gold for every 2 surviving units. You could get target dummies. So if you have like no tank line, you could run like all offense and get the augment that is like +2 target dummies. But from all the games I played, like it's all pretty balanced. Like there's one option for everything you want to do or could possibly need. Like there's a damage one, there's a defensive one, and then there's like an emblem one, for example. But yeah, a lot of stuff to go over. A lot of them are similar because the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3s, a lot of them share the same stuff. But I'm trying to go over all the unique ones that aren't just like gain an extra trait, for example. So there's one called Ascension. After 15 seconds of combat, your units deal 100% more damage. Pandora's items gain a random component. At the start of each turn, items on your bench are randomized, excluding Force of Natures and Spatula and consumables. There's one called Scoped Weapons. I think when I got this one in a game, I just forced snipers because I got double hex range on my range units and their attacks can't miss. But there's a lot to go over. I want to go over all the champions first because that's going to be like more the meat of the game. But again, if you guys want to see the full list, it's on my website, BunnyMuffins.lol. So all in all, augments, like they're pretty cool because they bring things from previous sets. So you could always relive moments that you had before. For example, like there's one that's literally you get the trade sector galaxy. You get a free reroll every shop. But they also add in new stuff such as there's one called Clear Mind. Like if you have no units on your bench at the end of the round, gain 4 experience points. So there's a lot of stuff to experiment with. And like each game's going to be different. Again, like I'm going to keep saying that all throughout this set. As for like how this affects how we play the game, you just have to use your brain every single game. That's what TFT has been about all the time. Again, like my advice is like just make sure you have a mix of offense and defense and utility. Make sure you are not too weak at certain points in time and having too much gold. And like if you need to roll, you need to roll. Like the same thing's been true all around for all of TFT. So this is pretty much just combining every single TFT set into one. But let's get into the item changes and the champions right now. All right, for Yordles, we can see at 3 Yordles after each player combat, a random Yordle is added to your bench for free. And if you get 6, Yordles abilities cost 20% less to cast. So in here, we have Poppy and Ziggs as the 1 cost units. For the 2 cost, we have Heimerdinger and Tristana. And then for 3 costs, we have Vex and Lulu. Poppy, she has her shield toss, so she's just going to throw her shield at the furthest enemy unit, and then it'll bounce right back to her, giving her a shield. Ziggs, his bomb's a little different. He throws one up in the air, and after a slight delay, the bomb lands, dealing magic damage to enemies that appear in the center. You guys will see, it's a little different from what he normally has, so you guys will see this in one of the playtest previews that I'll have later. Tristana, she is a sniper and she has the ability Buster Shot. So she fires a massive cannonball towards her target, dealing 200% of her attack damage plus 150 physical damage to the first enemy hit. And it deals like 300 right now. And if the target is within 2 hexes, they're knocked back 1 hex and stunned briefly. Heimerdinger, he is an Innovator and a Scholar, and he has Rocket Swarm. Heimerdinger fires a wave of 5 rockets that converge on his target, each dealing 72 magic damage to the first target they hit. Every 3rd cast, Heimerdinger summons 3 waves instead. Now onto Vex. Vex shields herself against damage over 4 seconds, and when the shield expires, it explodes and deals damage to enemies all around her within 2 hexes, and an additional 180 if it wasn't destroyed. So she has 2 range, her ability's 2 range, so you might want to like put her up front a little bit and kind of have her be like an off-tank kind of thing. Now onto Lulu. She has Wild Growth. Lulu enlarges 1 low health ally, granting them bonus health and knocking up enemies near them. If the ally is already enlarged, they are healed instead. And then as she levels up, the targets are increased. That is going to be all the Yordles right now. So here are all the Twin Shot champions. We have 5 of them total. So Twin Shot is an attack damage based ability. When a Twin Shot attacks, they have a chance to attack twice instead. 40% chance at 2, 70% chance at 4, and then 100% chance at 6. And the Twin Shot units are starting with Graves. He has a smoke grenade. He launches a smoke grenade towards his target, and the grenade explodes on impact, dealing damage to enemies and disarms them. Next up, we have Cogmaw. Cogmaw for 3 seconds gains infinite attack range, 80% attack speed, and his attacks deal 4% of the target's max health as bonus damage. After that, we have Gangplank. So Gangplank, He attacks his target with his gun, dealing 150% of his attack damage plus 120 bonus physical damage, totaling 240, and if this attack kills a champion, Gangplank plunders 1 gold. Next up we have Urgot. So Urgot, he is an attack damage based champion. This time he's not really a tank, so Urgot attacks the closest enemy for 5 seconds at a rate of 5 attacks per second, each dealing 45 physical damage. So you want a lot of attack damage on him, he's going to be carrying from the front line. Last but not least, we have Jinx, and here's her ability, as shown on the creep rounds. But Jinx rides her rocket into the sky, then comes crashing down near the centermost enemy, dealing a bunch of damage, and she leaves like a burning field around there, dealing % health, true damage, and reduces healing. She then swaps to her rocket launcher for the rest of the combat, causing her attacks to explode for 250% of her attack damage in the small area around her. Alright, next we have Academy. This is an 8 deep trait, and academics have bonus attack damage and ability power. They also learn from their allies, gaining additional bonus whenever an ally casts their ability. So 2, 4, 6, 8, they gain a bunch, and they also boost up their gain from allies. And the champions are Garen, Graves, Leona, Yuumi, Katarina, Lux, and Yone. So starting at the top, Garen, he's just gonna shrug off all crowd control effects, empowering his next strike to deal 200% of his attack damage, plus an additional 30% of his missing health in bonus physical damage. And he could also cast while stunned, which is pretty neat. Graves we already went over, and then Katarina, she's an assassin. She blinks behind the enemy with the lowest health within 3 hexes and slashes all adjacent enemies, dealing a bunch of magic damage, and she also gains mana for each enemy that she kills. Next up, we have Lux. Lux is Final Spark, and Lux targets a beam at the furthest enemy, dealing a bunch of magic damage, and if she kills a unit with her beam, she also gets a reset in terms of mana. After that, we have Leona. She's a 3 cost, she's also a bodyguard, and she calls down a beacon of light upon herself, granting her a big shield for 4 seconds, and allies around her within 2 seconds gain resistances. Next up, we have Yone. He's going to be a great carry, by the way. I've seen him in action, it's kind of scary. Yone summons his spirit to attack an enemy up to 3 hexes away for 4 seconds. The spirit is an untargetable, invulnerable copy of Yone and heals him for 60% of the damage it deals. If Yone dies, his spirit dies with him. And last but not least, for the legendary, we have Yuumi. She is also Cuddly and a Scholar. We'll just run over Cuddly right now. At the start of combat, Yuumi attaches herself to the nearest ally or to the lowest health ally after being unattached for 2 seconds. Attaching to an ally grants them a shield equal to 75% of Yuumi's max health, and Yuumi also detaches if the shield breaks. While attached, Yuumi is untargetable and cannot be attacked, but gains 5 mana per second and 10 mana whenever the ally attacks. And then her ability is Final Chapter. Yuumi and Book detach and then launch 4 waves toward the furthest enemy, each dealing 90 damage and stunning the enemies for 0.75 seconds. She then reattaches to the ally. Next up, we have Jace. He is a transformer, and he pretty much has 2 forms. He has melee and range forms. So right now he's range. He's got his gun out or his bow out. I don't know what it is. And he summons an acceleration gate in the back, granting allies a ton of attack speed, and it takes up the whole width of the road. You'll see him in action in some of the gameplay videos I'll have up shortly. And then he also shoots out a shock blast towards the largest group of enemies. When he's in the front row, he gets his hammer, and then his ability changes. He overcharges himself, becoming unstoppable, and gains a shield for 3 seconds, and then he attacks twice, he just does a ton of damage up front based on attack damage, and then he also reduces armor and magic resist. Alright, now we have the Syndicate. So Syndicates, certain allies are cloaked in shadows, gaining 40 armor, 40 magic resist, and 25% Omnivamp, and this happens at 3, 5, and 7 Syndicate. So at 3, the lowest percent health champion gets it, and then at 5, all of them get it, and then at 7 Syndicate, your whole team gets it, and the effects are increased by 50%. So starting at the top, we have TF and we have Darius. So Twisted Fate, he's also an Arcanist. He just throws his wild cards, just 3 cards out, they deal some magic damage. Darius, he is a bodyguard, and he also has Decimate. He swings his axe in a huge circle, dealing some magic damage and healing himself for each enemy hit. Next up, we have Shaco. Shaco, he is going to be an assassin. He's going to do a deceive. He dips into the shadow, becomes untargetable, and his next attack deals 2 of his attack damage plus 75 as physical damage, which is guaranteed to critically strike targets below 50% health. After that, we have Zyra. She is going to be a Scholar. And then Zyra summons vines in a row with the most enemies, dealing 300 magic damage and stunning them. After that, we have Akali. Akali, she has perfect execution. She dashes in a line towards the most enemies, and she's going to be marking them for 7 seconds, and when a marked target drops below 25% health, Akali dashes through them, dealing 300 magic damage to enemies she passes through, and executes the marked target. She's really strong when I played an assassin game. Last up, we have Braum. He's a 4-cost and a bodyguard, so he slams his shield on the ground, and it creates a fissure towards his target. Enemies within 2 hexes of Braum, and those struck by the fissure, are stunned by 2 seconds and take 100 magic damage. That sounds like a pretty good ability because it is an AoE stun. It's all around him and shoots up front. If you guys think of it as like a reverse rel, that's what I kind of think it is without the shield. All right, now we have snipers. There are 5 of them, and you could get 2, 4, 6 sniper. They pretty much just deal bonus damage based on how far they are from their target. Starting at the top, we have Tristana. First up, we have Tristana. We already went over her, so we're actually going to go over Caitlyn. Caitlyn, she has Ace in the Hole, and she takes aim at the furthest target enemy, shooting a bolt at them that deals a lot of damage, like tons of damage to the first enemy it hits. After that, we have Kog'Maw, and Kog'Maw is also a mutant and a twin shot. But yeah, we already went over him before too. And then after that, we have Misfortune. She is a mercenary. Mercenary is pretty much a pirate one, which we'll get into shortly. But she rains 4 waves of bullets down around a random enemy, dealing 200 total magic damage to enemies in the area and reducing their incoming healing for 6 seconds. Last but not least, we have Jhin. His ability is Curtain Call, so he's working a little differently than what we've seen in the past. He draws his weapon, and he pretty much does his ultimate in League of Legends if you guys have played that. So he just shoots 4 bullets, and they go through everyone. That's the one difference. And like, if it goes through someone, the damage is reduced. And the 4th shot is also guaranteed to critically strike and deals 100% more damage. But he still has a similar theme. He can only attack 0.9 times per second, and he converts his bonus attack speed into attack damage. All right, now we have Socialite. This is going to be Taric, Mundo, and Seraphine. And you may notice this little glowing spot right here. Socialite essentially reveals a spotlight on the map, and the unit standing in there gains some unique bonuses. So first up, we have 15% bonus damage. And then next up, if you have 2, you get mana per second. And then for 3, they heal for 20% of all damage that they deal. Keep in mind, guys, the spotlight it's on, it changes every single game, so you'll have to adapt. Sometimes it's going to be good for your tanks, sometimes it's going to be good for your damage dealer, sometimes it's a little in between, like how it is right now. So you're going to have to adapt within the game to figure out like what the heck is going on with that situation. So looking at the champions, we have Taric starting off, and he heals himself and the lowest health ally for 200. Any overhealing is converted to a shield that lasts 4 seconds. Seraphine is a Socialite Innovator. Her ability is Encore, and she projects her song towards the largest group of units, and the song deals 350 magic damage to enemies and reduces their attack speed for 35%, and allies it passes through are healed for 350 health and gain bonus attack speed. That is a very good supporting thing. Next up, we have Galio. He is a Bodyguard and Colossus. More on those later. But Galio becomes invulnerable, leaps into the sky, and then comes crashing down. He does his big like CC ability that you guys see in League of Legends, and he also has a passive. Critical strikes slam the ground, dealing 100 bonus magic damage to enemies around his target. So I'd imagine Infinity Edge is going to be pretty interesting on him if you want to go the damage route. Now let's take a look at Sister. So we already went over Jinx, but Vi and Jinx are sisters, and they gain empowered skills to compete with each other. In case you guys didn't know, Riot is releasing an anime called Arcane, and their rivalry looks to be like one of the main storylines. But Vi's ability range is increased by 2 hexes, and Jinx gains 50% stacking attack speed for 3 seconds after scoring a takedown, so these bonuses are something to look out for. Already went over Jinx's ability, so let's go on to Vi. She's also an Enforcer and Bruiser, and she gives a denting blow. She empowers her next attack to blast through her targets, dealing 350 magic damage to all enemies in cone and reducing their armor by 40% for 8 seconds. It's essentially set from set 5. Alright, now let's take a look at Scholar. Scholar is a 2/4/6, and your team gains mana every 2 seconds based on how many you have, and obviously it scales as you go up. We look at the champions, we already went over Yuumi. So next one we have is Lissandra. She's also a Chemtech, and then her ability is Iron Maiden. She encases her target in an Iron Maiden, stunning them for 1.5 seconds, dealing magic damage to enemies in a large area, and damage from the Iron Maiden reduces the enemy's attack damage by 40% for 5 seconds. So she's kind of a support unit, and then if she's low, she encases herself instead, dealing damage to surrounding enemies and becoming intargetable and invulnerable for 2 seconds. After that, we already went over Heimerdinger, we already went over Zyra, so that just leaves Janna. And she's also a scrap enchanter, and she summons a monsoon, knocking back nearby enemies and stunning them for 1 second. The Monsoon heals your team for 400 health over 3 seconds. So essentially, I think Janna's going to be good in some sort of like Enchanter build. You add in Scholars to give them mana, and she's going to be the main support unit there. All right, now we got the scraps. So at the start of each combat, components held by scrap champions are turned into full items for the rest of combat. Your team also gains a shield for each component equipped, including those that are part of a full item. So this is going to be increasing in items as you rank up the scraps. I don't have an example of how it works right now, but in the gameplay, we do see me play scrap for a little bit. But at the start, we already went over Ziggs. He's also a Yordle Arcanist. Trundle, he does a chomp. He bites his target, dealing 175% of his attack damage and reducing the target's movement speed by 50%. Movement speed debuffs haven't been that explored in the game, so I'm glad that they're doing more of that. He also steals attack damage for the rest of combat. Echo, he is a little weird. He's an assassin. He's gonna invoke an after image that bats a device towards the largest group of units. Upon landing, it deals 180 magic damage to enemies within and applies a 35% reduced attack speed for 4 seconds, and allies also gain attack speed while in there. Jinx, we already went over. Janna, same thing. Blitz, he just shoots out his hook and grabs the furthest enemy. He's got full mana at the start of the fight, so he will be doing this at the start of every fight, unless you get shrouded. Ezreal, he's going to be a scrap innovator, and Ezreal fires a missile at his target, dealing 150% of his attack damage plus 40 bonus physical. If the missile hits, he also grants himself a bonus stacking attack speed, going up to 5 stacks. So we can see here the scrap created an extra item here. It was just a component, and then it turned into a gunblade. Kind of cool there. It's good in the early game, obviously, if you want just extra items and you're not sure what to do with them. All right, let's move on to Protectors. So Protectors, they gain a shield whenever they cast an ability. This is Protectors from like set 3, and the shield doesn't stack, and it just scales up. It's 2, 3, 4, 5. Starting at the top, we have Scion. He's also Imperial and a Colossus. Scion winds up for a moment, then smashes his axe down, dealing damage in a large area, knocking them up and stunning enemies. After that, Garen, we already went over him. Caston, he's going to be a mutant as well, and he fires an orb of void energy at his target, dealing 200 magic damage and granting Caston a shield that reduces incoming damage for 4 seconds, and enemies hit by the orb suffer a 35 increase mana cost for their next ability cast, or a percentage of it. And then, of course, we also have Blitzcrank as a protector. All right, now we're on to Mutant. There are 6 of them, but you only need 5. And Metamorphosis, mutants grow every 2 seconds, gaining bonuses that stack up to 5 times. And this changes every game. So in this game, it's armor, magic resist, attack damage, and ability power. But they are different every game. I'm sure we'll find out more about that as the set comes out. But the champions are Kassadin. Kaisa, she's a mutant challenger. She dashes away from all enemies, then fires a volley. 15 missiles spread evenly among all enemies that deal 96 magic damage each, and for each time Kaisa has attacked this combat, she'll fire an additional missile. Kog'Maw, we already went over. Mundo, he is a Chemtech and Bruiser as well, and he injects himself with medicine, restoring 20% of his max health and becoming energized for 8 seconds. And while energized, he restores even more of his health, and he also deals magic damage to a random nearby enemy every second. When it expires, he expels a burst of electricity that deals a percent of his current health as magic damage to all enemies within 2 hexes. Malzahar, he's an Arcanist, and he infects the mind of the closest unafflicted target, dealing 1080 magic damage over 8 seconds and reducing magic resist of enemies by 40%. And then if an afflicted target dies, Malefic Vision spreads to the nearest 1 unafflicted targets within the remaining duration. But if you get him 3-star, you get 2 targets. So you could do some 3-star Malzahar shenanigans. Malzahar is Mortdog's favorite champion. So I am sure he is going to make sure that Malzahar reroll, especially at 3-star, he gets double the targets. Probably going to be viable if I had to take a guess. Lastly, we have Cho'Gath. He is also a Bruiser and Colossus, and he just has Feast. He just devours the lowest health enemy in range, dealing a bunch of magic damage. And if the target is killed, he gains a stack of Feast, stacking up to 10. Each stack of Feast permanently grants 2% bonus health and size. All right, now on to Mercenary. This is a 3/5/7, and yeah, so you gain a treasure chest that opens when you win combat against a player at the start of each planning phase versus a player. Dice rolls add loot to the chest. The longer you've gone without opening the chest, the luckier the dice. So if you lose a bunch, you get a better dice roll, I guess. So that's pretty cool. It's pretty much like Fortune, and yeah, we'll see how this actually works out and if it is viable or not. But there are essentially just 5 champions. So you could get up to 7, but you need to get like an augment or some spatulas for that. I'll get more into the augments later, but there probably is one that helps him out a bit. So first things first, Quinn, who is also a challenger, disarming assault. Quinn sends Valor out at a target with the highest attack speed, dealing 200 magic damage to the target and nearby enemies. Main target is disarmed for 2.5 seconds. Alawi, she's also a bruiser, and she slams her target, linking her soul to it for 5 seconds, dealing damage, and when linked, she is also healed for 30% of the damage taken by the target. After that, we have Gangplank. Gangplank attacks his target with his gun, dealing 150% of his attack damage plus 120 bonus physical damage, and if this attack kills an enemy champion, Gangplank plunders 1 gold. After that, Misfortune, we already went over her. So now onto Tahm Kench. Alright, so Tahm Kench, he's also a glutton, so we'll go over that now. An ally can be fed to Tahm Kench once per planning phase, permanently granting him either attack damage, ability power, health, armor, or magic resist. So to do this, we just take a guy, pop it over his mouth, and then he eats it. So he got ability power there. When he eats Yumi, I'm sure it depends on what you feed him for what he gets. But his ability is also Devour. He devours his targets, storing them in his belly and dealing like a ton of magic damage over 3 seconds. During this time, they are invulnerable to other sources of damage, and Tahm Kench takes 40% less damage. If they die while inside, Tahm Kench either spits out a random component they were holding or the cost of the unit in gold. So Mercenary, Tahm Kench, gonna be a good combo for gold. Otherwise, he spits them towards the furthest enemy, briefly stunning targets on impact. I guess right here, hopefully he's gonna get his cast off before, yeah, he just eats the guy, and I guess he doesn't spit him out because it's a neutral round. So now we got the Innovators. This is a 3/5/7. They summon either a Scarab, a bear, or a dragon, depending on how much you have. We have the bear right here, but essentially, like, they just build them into a machine. But for the units, we already went over Seraphine, Heimerdinger, Zillion. Zillion's a new one here. He's also a Clockwork, so he has a time bomb. He places a bomb on the closest enemies, stunning them for 1.5 seconds. And when the stun ends or the target dies, the bomb explodes, dealing magic damage to the enemy and adjacent units, and also reduces their attack speed. There's a lot of attack speed reduction in this set so far. Next up is Singe. He has a Fling. He flings a nearby enemy towards the largest cluster of enemies, stunning his target for 1.5 seconds when they land, and all adjacent enemies take magic damage and are briefly stunned. The other guys are Jace and Ezreal, but we already went over those, and Heimerdinger, I think we did him too. Yeah, he has Rocket Swarm. We went over him when we went over Yordles. All right, now we have Imperial up here. So Imperial, at the start of combat, the Imperial who dealt the most damage last combat becomes a Tyrant, and the Tyrant deals bonus damage. When the Tyrant dies, the Imperial who has dealt the most damage this combat becomes a new Tyrant. So they get a 60%, then 100% bonus. So starting at the top, we have Talon. He's also an assassin. He has Blade's End. He has no mana, so his first attack on an enemy causes them to bleed magic damage over 7 seconds, and then his third attack on a target applies an additional bleed. So I'm guessing attack speed going to be really good on him. Rage Blade makes a lot of sense because that also gives AP, because it looks like he scales with AP. Next up is Swain. He's also an Arcanist, and his ability is Death's Hand. Swain pierces bolts of Eldritch power in a cone towards his target, dealing magic damage to enemies within and healing Swain for each enemy hit. Next up we have Scion. I think we already went over him. He just does his like ground slam. Samira, she's also a challenger. Her ability is Flare, and if a target is adjacent to Samira, she slashes with her blade in a cone towards them, dealing 150% of her magic damage as physical damage to all enemies, and reduces their armor by a flat amount, and this armor reduction can stack. Otherwise, she fires an empowered shot at her target with the same effect and gains 20 mana. Alright, next up we have Enforcers. So this is 2 and 4. Enforcers stun enemies at the start of combat. They break free after 4 seconds or after losing 30% of their max health. This is really good. It's pretty much like a pseudo Zephyr on their strongest guy, or like their tankiest guy. So like at 2 Enforcer, you get the guy who has the most health, and then at 4, you get the guy who dealt the most damage last combat. That is absolutely insane. So Jace is one of them. We already went over him. Vi, we already did 2, and then Fiora is new. She's also a challenger. She has Blade Waltz. So she becomes untargetable and strikes 4 times after her target's vitals. Each strike deals 200% of her attack damage as physical damage, and also has bonus true damage, and heals her for 15% of the total damage dealt. If the target dies, Fiora will change targets to the nearest enemy. And then after that, we already went over everyone else here, so we'll go on to the next one. All right, now we are at Clockwork. So Clockwork, your team has increased attack speed with additional increase for augment in the hex core. So right now we have 3 because it's late game, so we get like bonuses for that. But if like as the game goes on, it scales, and then 20% attack speed at 2, and then 40% attack speed at 4, and then they get 5 and 10% per augment. So total at 4, right now at least, we get 70% attack speed, which is kind of big, you know? The guys are Zillion, which we went over, Oriana, she's also an Enchanter. She sends her ball at the largest group of champions, then commands it to release a shockwave, and allies within the hexes gain a shield, and then enemies are briefly knocked up and dealt a bunch of magic damage, and enemies adjacent to the ball are also drawn in and stunned. Camille, she is a Clockwork challenger. Her ability is defensive sweep. She gains a shield, blocking damage over 4 seconds, sweeps her leg, dealing more damage to enemies in a cone. While the shield holds, Camille's attacks restore 30 health. Maybe there's reroll Camille, that seems pretty cool. And then Jin, he's also a sniper, and he has like his 4-shot ability thing that we went over before. All right, now we got the big boys. We got Colossus. Colossus are bigger and more powerful and immune to crowd control effects. However, they take up 2 team slots. So it's you got 3 of them on there. That's 6 team slots. And they also take reduced damage. I'd probably recommend getting a Giant Slayer against them, but Cho'Gath's one of them. He's also a Bruiser and a Mutant, but he has the Feast ability. Dr. Mundo, Galio, he does his giant jump up and then boom in a circle, AoE CC. And then Scion, he does his old knock up as we saw before. But these guys are big. They get very tanky. I wonder how big 3-star Galio is. If you guys do get that in your games, be sure to show me that, because that'd be kind of pretty cool. But yeah, just tweet it to my socials or my Instagram at BunnyMuffins LOL on both platforms. All right, now let's move on to Chemtech. So after dropping below 60% health, Chemtech champions gain 25% damage reduction, 50% attack speed, and they regen 4% of their max health each second. But essentially, these are all the champions, and there are a lot of them, so strap in. So we have Zac as a Bruiser, and he stretches his arms out, and he pulls the 2 most distant enemies towards him, dealing a bunch of magic damage, and he takes 60% less damage while using this ability. After that, we have Singe. We already went over him. Warwick, he's also a challenger. We'll go over that right after this, I think, and he is eternally hungry. Passive, Warwick's attack deals an additional 6% of his target's current health as bonus magic damage and heal him for 25. Mundo, he is also a Mutant and Bruiser, and he does his giant heal thing. Urgot, he just does his Purge, which does a ton of damage. He's also a twin shot. After that, we have Twitch. He's a 1-cost unit. He's also an assassin, and he has Piercing Bolt. Twitch fires a powerful bolt towards his target that pierces through enemies, dealing magic and physical damage, and reduces healing by 50% for 5 seconds. Victor's interesting. He's an Arcanist as well. He's the legendary of the Chemtechs, and he summons a lot of fire death rays, and they cut across the battlefield in line and melt the enemies. The enemies caught in its path take magic damage, and they destroy 25% of any remaining shields and reduce their armor for 6 seconds. So armor shred, shield reduction, and damage, all really good utility from a legendary unit. Let's get in our challengers now. Challengers gain bonus attack speed upon scoring a takedown. Challengers dash to a new target and double this bonus for 2.5 seconds. Really powerful. Stuff like RFC is really good on them if you want to do a Yone carry, because he just jumps around, deals a ton of damage. But we got Camille. I went over her before, but she has a defense sweep. Warwick, he has the Eternal Hunger. Diora, she does her Blades Waltz, which is attacking 4 times for the vitals. Samira, she does the auto attack, and then Kaisa, she does her thing. And then Quinn sends out Valor at the target enemy with the highest attack speed, dealing magic damage and disarms them. And then Yone, he's gonna do his copy thing, which is he's really good from what I've seen as a carry. Hopefully 4-cost carries, and especially melee ones, are really viable this set, because Jax was kind of lackluster in set 5, but we'll see how they survive in this new set. Now time for the Bruisers. The Bruisers, they just get a bunch of health. The more you have, the more the merrier. 8 Bruiser, you get 900. So they had 8 Bruiser, I believe, in set 4. That was kind of crazy there. I remember Set had the giant bombs at the end of the game. But Cho'Gath, we already know. Trundle, he does his chomp thing. Zac, he does his grabby thing. Alawi, he gets a soul, or she gets a soul. Tomken, she has the eating thing. And then Vi, she does her she's pretty much set from this set. And then we have Mundo with the tons of heal. So Mundo with Bruisers, it feels like it's gonna be good, because he's gonna have a ton of health for his heals. That's gonna be fun to play around with. All right, we're getting towards the end now. The next one we have is Bodyguard. This one's a 2-4-6-8. You just get a bunch of armor, so it's either Bruisers, Bodyguards, but Bodyguards are a little different than Vanguards, which are typically the armor class before. So They have increased armor. Shortly after combat begins, the Bodyguard taunts adjacent enemies, forcing them to attack the Bodyguard. Is this going to make ZZ Rot a little redundant if you're already running Bodyguards? Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see. They might have to change that item if there is a taunt from this. But going over the champions, we have Blitz. He's going to do his rocket grab. Galio, we already know he does that giant jump thing. And then Darius, he is going to swing his axe in a circle and heal himself for each enemy hit. Darius reroll should be fun to try out. Poppy, she throws her shield. And then we also have Braum. He does his like fissure thing, which like he's like the opposite rel kind of. And then next up we have Leona. Leona's an Academy Bodyguard. She calls down a beacon of light around herself and like gives a bunch of resistances and stuff like that. So that is pretty much going to be the Bodyguards. All right, now we have the Assassins. So they just jump to the back when the fight starts, and then their abilities is they can critically strike and they gain bonus critical strike chance and damage, and then it just scales up 2, 4, 6 like how it does in the past. So Twitch, we already went over. He does his piercing bolt. Echo does his like little clone thing. Akali, he does her like dash around thing, which is pretty cool. Talon, he has his rend. And then Shaco, he has his deceive. And then Katarina, she has her Shunpo. She has like a reset, and if she wants to, or if she kills a unit, which is pretty neat. So Assassins, the carries might be like Talon or Katarina if you do a reroll. Obviously in the late game, Akali is going to be amazing. 6 Assassins, or like with an IE, she's going to be tearing through everyone. We do have an Assassin reroll game, so if you guys are not subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe because that is going to be releasing shortly. And if you want to like get the scoop on that, like you'll get a notification if you do subscribe. Or so do hit the button down below if you are not already. We also come out with a lot of guides for TFT, like composition guides, tier lists every single Friday. I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. So again, if that is of any interest of you, hit the button below if you have not already. All right, now we got the Arcanist. So Arcanist increase your ability power of your team. So 2, 4, 6, 8. They gain a lot. So Arcanists also do get a special bonus at 4 and 6. And then the champions, there are a lot of them. We have 7 of them. Starting at the top, we have Twisted Fate. He throws out his wild cards. Ziggs, he's going to throw his bomb. Lux, she does her ult thing, which is really cool. It gets a ton of resets, and she casts really quickly. Vex, she's kind of like the pseudo tank. Malzahar, he shoots his like his people call it like the AIDS thing. And then Victor, he does his Chaos Rays, and then Swain, he's gonna do that thing where he shoots something out, and then however many he hits, he also gets healed or something like that. But yeah, that's gonna be Arcanist there, like I guess the default AP class. They also help out your team too. All right, last but not least, guys, we got Enchanters, because we went in reverse alphabetical order, but we did Academy early, and then like I skipped Enchanters. I guess I was like enchanted by set 6 so much that I forgot about them and skipped over them. But your team has bonus magic resist, and Enchanters gain bonus healing and shielding, depending on your level, or 2, 3, 4, 5. And the champions are gonna be Lulu, who does her ult thing. Janna, who does like the healing circle. Tarek, he's gonna be doing some heals as well. And then we have Orianna with her Shockwave, which is like the AoE stun and like the displacement thing. But yeah, that is going to be all the champions. Let's go into the items. All right, so for the items, we have Static Shiv. It now gives 15% bonus attack speed. It does the same thing otherwise. Ionic Spark got a new look. Quicksilver, it also gives bonus attack speed now. So these 2 items are definitely for the attack speed oriented champions, which is a little weird because we don't have Ranger anymore. Zeke's Herald got a new look, and then Archangels, instead of doing it on cast, you now gain 25 ability power every 4 seconds whenever you have the item. So it's still a scaling thing. They also changed up Dragonclaw. Dragonclaw has been doing 18% max health damage, and then Runon's gives additional attack damage but no longer applies on hit. And then Banshee's Claw, I think we have that here. Banshee's Claw, when combat begins, the holder and all allies within 1 hex gain a shield that blocks damage and the effects of the first enemy ability, but now it's only up to 600 damage. Deathblade now gives attack damage based on star level, and then Tactician's Crown got a new look. But that is going to be all the champions and the items that we've covered. Obviously, all this is subject to change. I'll see you guys on the PBE, and hopefully when the set comes out as well, because, I mean, after we look through everything, like with the augments and all that, like, looks like a pretty promising set. I'm not just saying that because, I mean, it actually is really, it's essentially pick your own galaxy. And then the champions, like, they all do unique things. Like, you look at the legendaries and they all do something different that's in the past. Like, even a lot of the forecasts, they're a lot different from what they were before. And I like how they expanded on different types of playstyles because, like, again, the augments, they're going to change everything. Is it going to be hard to balance? Probably. There's probably some OP combos out there that are like auto win if you get like the exact 3 combos. But we'll see how it plays out. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and definitely check out the gameplay that's going to be coming in the next, like, I think I'm going to drop the first one like a couple hours later, and then the other one's like 1 per day until I run out of stuff to do. But like, we'll be on the PBE most likely and playing some games there. So hope you guys enjoyed that, and hope to see you on the channel in the future as well. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.